Birdman, aka The Life of Michael Keaton. And that's really what this movie feels like. It feels like it's Michael Keaton essentially playing himself. He's playing an actor that used to play a superhero called Birdman back in the 80s up until 1992, which is exactly what Michael Keaton did. He played Batman up until 1992. And his character in this movie, in 1992, he decided to stop playing Birdman and he wanted to become a real actor. He wanted to become an artist. And he's working on this play, and this is everything he's put into. This is the first time he's ever doing a Broadway play, and he really wants this to be what people will remember him by. He feels like he's fading, you know, and that's a cool thing because Michael Keaton, since Batman, hasn't really been in a lot of big movies. And I hope, and I think, that this movie is kind of going to be the resurgence of Michael Keaton. There's so much, you know, noise that this movie is making. You know, he's getting nominations and all that stuff. So Birdman is doing really well. Michael Keaton is getting a nomination for this. I love everything that is happening for Michael Keaton in this movie. And that's just kind of cool that it ties into this. There's so many cool things about this movie that tie into certain things. Another cool aspect that makes it feel like it's a biography of Michael Keaton is the way that they film this movie. It's all as if it's one take. It's all one shot. It's not. They obviously cut throughout the movie and you can kind of tell where they do, which is a nice bonus. You can see that be like, okay, they must have cut it there, 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 which is just fun. But it makes you feel as if you're there, and it's like a behind the scene show of everything that happens, especially with the actors and actresses, where they'll be in front of the audience, you know, and they'll be standing together, holding hands, all smiles, and then as soon as that curtain goes down, or they pass by the curtain where the audience can't see them, just they start, you know, ripping each other apart and stuff because they don't like each other. Not all the time, which is, you know, what really happens. Not for every movie or Broadway play at all, but there are times where there's actors and actresses that just despise each other, but when they go on camera or in front of an audience, they are complete professionals, and I like that. I like that about this movie. The acting is superb. I loved Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton was so good in this movie. Along with, you know, Naomi Watts, Edward Norton, Emma Stone, Zach Galifianakis, I generally don't like. You know, I don't like his hangover type of character, which he generally plays a lot, because it's just, he's like an idiot. But this movie, he's not. He's not an idiot, and it's still a comedy, but it's a different type of comedy. And I really liked his character and what he was saying. And I was like, oh, Zach Galifianakis, but I liked him in this movie. And that brings me to another point. There's just so many things that transition to something else into this movie, and which is funny because there's not really any, you know, transitioning of scenes in this movie. They just go from one character to another. They just follow, right? I know there's just so much about this movie. Anyway, I just gave a critique on Zach Galifianakis. You know, I generally don't like his characters. I'm not saying that it's bad if you do, but he's just not my cup of tea. But that's something that critics do. And in this movie, Michael Keaton blasts a critic, and he says so many things that are so right about critics, you know, that they do that is so wrong. And it felt so good to watch that and see Michael Keaton say all of this. But then I'm thinking, I'm kind of guilty of some of these things. Like, I do make critiques every so once in a while about a certain character or an actress or an actor. Like Emma Stone in this movie, she looks really slim. And I was like, I'm critiquing that. And so there's a lot of things that hit home, but also he goes completely off on like a lot of the wrong things that critiques do, and they just blast certain people and actors or movies for just stupid reasons. And there's so much more that he says that I don't do, which I'm happy with. But yeah. Love that about this movie. I love the way that it's shot. The only thing that I would say are negatives is kind of the movie dragged on more so towards the end. I thought it was going to end and it didn't, and then they kind of went on a little bit longer. And the last segment, the last part of this movie is something that I think I'm going to have to see once more at least. Like, this is a movie that I think you could watch a few times because there's a lot more going on to it, and I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah. Really interesting movie. Dragged on just a little bit at the end, but the acting is superb. The way that it's filmed is amazing. Everything that they talk about, like the tidbits, they talk about relevant Hollywood stuff. So I really like that. I like that you got to see everything in the behind the scenes of all these characters. But there's just something a little bit missing, and that comes to play more so towards the end because I didn't exactly know. Like, it's kind of like they have certain aspects of the movie throughout, and then it kind of just gets. I wanted a little bit more of an ending to this movie, and it's really hard to explain without spoiling anything and explaining what I want. But anyway, I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's just a little bit lower than the 8. It almost made the 8, but it's just not there fully. If I was just talking about the acting and the way that this movie was filmed, like the directional style, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10 because the acting is fantastic. I loved everything about that movie concerning the acting. Michael Keaton, man, I hope he gets more big roles, or even just, you know, small roles like this, which turned out to be a big role because it's Oscar worthy. So anyway, thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in.
Beardage.